Got myself some more water. Remember, stay hydrated. All right, so welcome to the epilogue portion of this video. Basically, this part, I was originally going to try and script this, but I felt like it would be fun to have like a little bit of a casual talk about this, and this is where the discussion part kind of comes in, where I've got some questions that I see commonly asked, and I couldn't really format it into the video in a way that was like time-worthy, and so I've got some Snail House playing in the background, and we're just going to go through 10 different questions that I found. I am going to add an extra one because I thought about it right before hitting record. But the first misconception I want to talk about, well, first off, I should have scripted this. Oh my God, I'm already regretting that decision. So basically what I want to talk about here is use this as a way to talk about more advanced mechanics and stuff like that of mechanics. God, my game developer side is coming out. I want to talk about more in-depth systems and stuff about Stable Diffusion and how you can use it with the web UI and stuff. And I want to have a reason to talk about all these extensions and stuff I mentioned earlier. And so we're going to use this format to kind of do that, to where I'm just going to answer some questions that I've seen a lot. Anyways, first misconception that I want to talk about before we actually get into the questions is people seem to think that Automatic1111 or whatever else you want to call it runs in the browser. It does not. It actually runs in the command window. So if we go ahead and look down here in the bottom left of my screen, this is the console. And so it actually runs in the console. So Stable Diffusion and Automatic Web UI run in Python. And so you can actually see where the Python script is going for. And you can go and look at the source and all that, and it's all in Python. You can edit it and then rerun it and stuff. And it actually runs in the console. So you can actually close the window here if you want to. So literally do that right now. Close it. It's gone. Oh no, it's not gone. It's because it's actually running here. If you want to close it, you have to close this, but we can just go back to that page. You will lose any data that is stored within the web page that you had open. So for example, our image is gone and all our parameters and stuff like that are gone. But you can actually like set defaults and stuff. So like I have stuff already filled out in here because in the settings, you can go down near the bottom. It says defaults. You can actually apply changes to your defaults and just hit apply. And then it'll actually save these. We saw an issue with that earlier to where I was trying to reset all the settings and I actually kept the defaults because I guess it's stored in a different file. I don't know what file, but it's somewhere in there. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. Web UI is called Web UI because we use a web interface to interact with Stable Diffusion. So it actually runs in the terminal, and you can actually run it on a different machine as well. So what the default routing is for a local machine is 127.0.0.1, and then it runs in port 7860. So you just type it in exactly like this up here, and it'll go to it. So you can actually go to a different computer on the network as long as you have open networking and just load it up. So if I booted up my laptop on the other side of the room or my ROG Ally somewhere else in the house, I could literally go to this web page at that domain and it'll load up this UI and I could run it on my local machine over here, which is pretty cool. It has a lot of functionality. That's why a lot of people use stuff like Automatic or Comfy UI or Invoke AI, I think also supports it. I haven't used Invoke AI yet. I've been researching it and looking into it, but I haven't used that one yet. But yeah, so like they'll use that on something like external server or like some sort of Google Colab type thing, which you're not technically supposed to use Google Colab for this. So just a warning there, if you do try to use that. I know a lot of people try to and then get banned and then complain about it. You're not supposed to, just so you know. All right, so anyways, next question, first question technically, but let's go ahead and get into this. So my image would be generated fine, then just suddenly stop halfway through. This is generally an out of memory error or some sort of error. So like I was saying with the console, a lot of stuff actually runs in the console and it'll show errors. So if we get like a NaN error or an out of memory error, it'll show up in the console. So whenever you have an issue, you always want to look at the console and see what it says. And if you don't know how to interpret it, then just go to communities and stuff like that. I know I'm in the Broken Chat Box, which is my Discord, link in the description. I don't know why I plug it so much. But also there's a lot of different AI Discords. One that I've been fairly active in is the Civet AI Discord. They've been super helpful over there, and I'm also over there quite often right now. And so like you just go in there and be like, hey, I'm getting this error and I don't know what to do about it. They'll be able to help you out and stuff. The community for AI stuff has been really, really friendly and helpful, at least from my experience. There's a couple of bad eggs like there always is, but generally people are really helpful. For this specific problem though, if your image is generating fine and then randomly it stops, it's most likely because you either ran out of memory or you ran out of storage, and it'll tell you in the console. It'll be like an OOM error, or it'll just say straight up you ran out of storage. I've had storage issues a couple of times because my hard drive is normally always capped out. So if we go over to like my browser here and we go back to my PC, I put my images in the HDD here on drive E, and sometimes I just accidentally fill it up just with random stuff, especially when I'm merging models and stuff like that, which takes up a lot of space. And so sometimes it runs out, sometimes it doesn't, that sort of thing. And yeah, you just don't always know. That's why I like having deterministic results as well, because I can just be like, oh, I liked what that looked like. I can just re-enter that same parameter and get the image back, which is always nice. Yeah, so that's how that goes. Yeah, and if you are running out of memory, by the way you fix that is you drop the resolution. High-res fix uses a lot of memory. So VRAM is very, very crucial for Stable Diffusion. And if you have a graphics card that doesn't have a lot of video memory, especially if you're below 8 gigs, you kind of can't do a whole lot with resolution, and you just got to make the image smaller. That's pretty much all you can do. I wouldn't try to go below 512 by 512, because if you do, you start getting worse and worse images, and it doesn't look good. But the first thing is to like disable high-res fix if you're using it, and then set a lower resolution. So normally I would do like 512 by 512 or something along those lines. There are a couple of errors you can run into, especially on AMD systems, where you'll just run out of memory randomly and there's not really much you can do about it. And in those cases, like it's a memory leak or some sort of error happens, go ahead and just close Stable Diffusion and restart it. Generally speaking, if I run into some random error I've never seen before, I just close Stable Diffusion, launch it back up, and it's gone and it never comes back. It's just sometimes the code screws up. Don't know why. It just happens. Sometimes it's a driver error and you just have no control over it because drivers can be finicky and stuff. All right, so next question. Put an X next to that one. I didn't change anything, but now my image looks different when I generated it. What happened? So I see this one a ton, and this is why I was so adamant about talking about deterministic results. Like, you need to set things up specifically for deterministic results if you want to expect to get the same image back. If you do not set up what I was talking about and stuff, chances are you're going to get a different image, because basically anything that changes the noise will change the image you get, and there's nothing you can do about that. So long story short, people will install things like Xformers. I didn't talk about Xformers in this video, but a lot of people will recommend installing Xformers. They break deterministic behavior, which means that basically every time you generate an image, it's going to be different time and time again. And I've helped a lot of people that were like, I don't get the same result. And it turns out they installed Xformers because they followed some dubious guide that recommended it right off the bat. And it's like, you got to recommend that while giving the caveats, right? Like, people don't do that. So a lot of people end up making a mistake in doing that type of thing. If you don't set like RNG to CPU, for example, driver updates can break it, because if it changes the seed code within the driver itself, or something else changes within the driver that changes how it's processed, it will change the seed. It doesn't always. Sometimes driver updates don't touch it, but a lot of times it will. And which means that like, oh, you did a driver update, or even if you like update Windows, the driver might interact differently and then it will change it. So if your image isn't generating exactly the same, either A, you never generated it with deterministic results in the first place, or two, you did change something, you just don't know what it is. And that's kind of just how that goes. If it generated something different, this isn't like magic wobbly wobbly stuff. It's math. Like, it's going to be the same every single time you run it. So if you change the math, of course, the result's going to be different. So that's kind of where that goes. I see that a lot, by the way, like a ridiculous amount. And people are very adamant that they didn't change anything, but it always ends up being that they changed something or something else changed. And so there you go. And you can also look at hashes of like models and things like that, and hashes for noise generation. But most people don't do that because it's really advanced technical stuff that nobody really cares about. Next question. My web UI won't load this model. What's wrong? This one's really common as well. Most likely, currently at least, it's probably because you're trying to load the wrong model in the wrong place. If you try to put like a LoRa with the checkpoints and you try to load it as a checkpoint, it won't load. So for example, up here, like if you try to load something that's supposed to go in the LoRa folder into the models folder and you try to load it, it won't load. Same thing will happen if you try to load like SDXL models in a web UI that doesn't support it. So for example, if you're running an old version of the automatic web UI, then it just simply won't load an SDXL model. You have to be updated to 1.6 or 1.5, I think is the first one that had it, but 1.6 is the recommended one. And that'll end up being able to load it and stuff. But basically, if it's not loading, either A, you have a corrupted file and it didn't download properly, or two, it's not the right place to put the folder or file. And generally, it'll show an error in the console and tell you what it is, but not always. Sometimes it doesn't. So you just kind of have to remember what you downloaded and put it where it goes the first time instead of trying to guess. Yeah, so that's that. Now we'll actually get into image generation questions. The image looks fine while it's generating, but it turns completely black for the final output. Now this is another error that I see talked about a ton. Like, this is probably the most common question I see, but generally it's solved pretty quickly, because typically speaking, a black output just means you ran into a NaN error or not applicable. error. So basically, what happens is that there's some sort of data that doesn't get complete, and the VAE can't process the data. And this means one of two things. Either A, your VAE is screwed, or number two, your model is screwed. So if you have a corrupted model, it'll occasionally do NaN errors, but that's pretty rare. Typically speaking, if you have a screwed up model, it just won't generate at all. But if you do have like a messed up VAE, you'll just randomly get black images, and it's very strange. This can also happen if your graphics card doesn't support FP16, which means I talked about that in the settings part, but you'll want to set up your upcasting. So for example, if we go to, I think it was under Stable Diffusion, right? Upcast cross attention layer to float 32. There's also another output command, which I don't remember exactly what it is. We'll just go ahead and do this in here real quick. So go ahead and open this and edit. God, I hate how Windows 11 added that extra menu. I believe it is no half and no half VAE, and that will force everything. So no half is just for everything, which means that it's not using FP16, it uses FP32. And then no half VAE can help fix VAEs that otherwise have errors. Not always, it just makes the errors less likely because there's more data for it to work with, which means it can interpolate more, and it's not going to NaN error as much. Typically speaking, though, if you have a graphics card that doesn't support FP16, just set no half in your command arguments, just like that, I think. I'm not looking it up specifically, so you'll probably have to look at it. Actually, I think I had the command arguments up in my page up here. So if we go here and then type in half, maybe it's not no half. I thought it was no half. Let's just do FP32. Really? All right, well, I don't remember what it is now. All right, well, I'm not going to waste a bunch of time looking for it, but there's a console command that you can do to upcast all of it. It might have been depreciated, actually, because it's in the UI now, I believe. One sec. I'll go ahead and find it and cut here. I found it. I don't know why. It says no half right here, so it is no half. I was right. Do not switch the model to 16-bit floats. Yeah, so you do no half, and then precision full, I think, right? Yes, okay. So I was slightly wrong. We'll go ahead and correct that information. So let's go ahead and open up Opad. So you would do no half and then precision, just like it's typed down there. And then I think you do full, like that, I think. Could be wrong. If it doesn't work, then just like do it like that, or maybe it's like this. I think it's the dash. So it's probably like that. I would double check that one, but I think that's what you got to do. So graphics cards that don't support FP16 are pretty rare. Apparently, I just learned today, literally today, that the 1600 series actually had a glitch within its hardware for FP16 support, so it bugs out and doesn't work properly. So on the 1600 cards, you would want to do no half and precision full. And then on some older AMD cards, I think, you would also want to do no half and precision full. There's also older graphics cards, like I think it's the 700 series on NVIDIA that didn't support FP16. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so you'd have to be on some pretty old NVIDIA cards for that. But other than that, it should support it perfectly fine. If you have a 10 series or later, you're perfectly fine to go on NVIDIA. And AMD, I don't remember. They added it much later, so you might have to do that. But that'll be specifically designed for in the AMD branch, so you might not have to worry about it. So anyways, on to what we're doing there. Go ahead and minimize that. All right, now we're actually going into prompts. So how do I manage colors? When I use blue eyes, the clothes will also be blue. So this is what we call color bleed, typically speaking. So let's go ahead and load up our prompts that we had before. So we'll just go ahead and get this in here. Go ahead and grab that. All right, so you can see how useful that is. I could literally, oops, I didn't mean to click that. You can literally just click on that and we'll get rid of high res fix so we don't have to worry about the gen speed. All right, so when we generate this image, we get a very specific look, but as you'll notice, like her hair is white, and that's because white's in the prompt. So I have the white dragon here, but what if we don't want the hair to be white? So there's two ways to kind of, well, technically three ways to kind of approach it, as well as extensions and stuff that we'll talk about in a second. So like we got very long hair, curly hair, but we can also use keywords for specific types of things. So for example, we can do like blonde hair, and blonde is a very specific word that's typically only used with hair. So the vast majority of tags are going to have it in hair. So if we regenerate this with blonde hair, chances are she's going to have blondish hair. And it's not going to bleed into anything else because blonde is a very specific color, right? And so it's only used for like hair. For a couple of other things you could end up doing as well, like you can specify the types of things you want. So like, for example, we have white dragon and it's like black armor. So keep things close together and kind of separate them with other keywords. So for example, we've got these things separated. So we got black armor, and then we have some other unrelated keywords, and then blonde hair, blue eyes, white dragon, and there's only there for a meme. Yeah, and then, try to regenerate that, and it should do a blackish armor or darker armor. So there you go. It did darker armor, and it looks relatively black, right? But like, let's say we're trying to generate something else, like, let's just say, pink shirt. Oops. Just see what this does. And then like a blue skirt. And we're going to do purple eyes. I'm just trying to do as many colors as possible next to each other. So purple eyes. Let's do short hair this time. Spiky. There we go. That's not how you spell spiky. There's not a K at the start. There we go. That looks right. All right, so if we do this, and we'll just like do it outdoors, backyard. There we go, and village. All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and generate that and see what it does. So there we go. So you'll see there's a problem here, right? So it got the pink shirt and the blue skirt correct, but the purple bleeded into the hair. And so you need to specify every single aspect that you want to be colored, which is a bit annoying. So we're going to do, let's do green hair, which is, again, trying as many colors as possible. Yeah, so there you go. That's one way to do it. It worked pretty well, actually. Now, sometimes this won't work. Now, sometimes the colors will bleed together. So, for example, if you end up getting, we'll just do a couple of random seeds here. You might get it so that the skirt is a little bit more green here, for example. Like, that's a great example, actually, to where it's still kind of blue, but it's also green because we had the prompt for the green hair. So it's going to carry over and actually affect that bottom color. Now, one of the tools I love to use for this is called Regional Prompter. I'm not going to get too far into it, but effectively what you can do is you can create regions that you end up editing. And so if we do this, we can make a template, see like this, and then we'll just modify the weights real quick. So go 4, probably 5. We'll just see what that does. We want the top one to be a little bit bigger. Takes a little bit to get used to, but this is a tool that you can use it so you can signify prompts for specific regions. This is one of my favorite next to ControlNet. We'll talk about ControlNet in a second, actually, because you can combine it with this for that. And I'm going to add a common prompt so that we don't have to do too much prompting here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So this will give you a template on how to use it. Oh, I forgot to do that as well. There we go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and copy that over there. And then we're going to fill these in. Basically, how this extension works is that you have the common prompt that I enabled here and the use common prompt so that the top one is common. We're going to do this with the negatives as well. This allows you to actually specify different regions as well. And so basically we'll have female, and then green hair and short hair and spiky would be up at the top. So we'll go ahead and take that out, and then we'll go ahead and put that up at the top. So that's going to be the first row that we got. So basically we got the add common, we put the keyword at the end. And so there's documentation on their GitHub page and stuff like that. And you find this, by the way, going to extensions and looking for regional prompter. So right here. And so you can just follow this GitHub page link and stuff like that, or you can use the search on the available like I showed earlier. There you go. All right, so we've got that. And then purple eyes would also be up at the top. So purple eyes. And you could like refine this as much as you want. And then we got pink shirt. We're going to put this on the second row. So pink shirt. And then blue skirt would be down at the bottom. Blue skirt. Now this doesn't always work. There are some caveats to using this tool because it's not always specific. Sometimes it can modify the way it looks. But there's a couple of other things we can do with the negatives, because as you notice, I also copied it over to the negatives. And I guess that's what it thinks is blue, I suppose. But yeah, so we could go ahead and change that actually. Let's go ahead and do, what's another color that's really weird? Let's do red, because red's pretty powerful, right? There we go. Yeah, so that worked. But another thing you can do is you can use the negative prompt, and with regional prompter specifically, you can use different regions as well. So it'd be like, if the bleed was going through, we could put like purple hair in here to try and dissuade it from doing purple hair. Or if the skirt is turning pink, then we could do like, pink shirt down there, or just the word pink, just so it excludes that color from the negative prompt, or from the generated image and stuff. But yeah, so generally speaking, that's how you use regional prompter. There's more advanced stuff with it. You can do horizontal, vertical, and stuff like that. So we could do like an extra region up at the top, for example, to where it's like, there we go. Oh, I did that wrong. So we want to do 1 and then do like 3 like that. That'll work. Okay, so now when we copy this over, we're going to add an extra column. So I'm just going to do this so it's better. There we go. And then that would also go into the negative prompt, or else we'll error out. So then I could put in here like nothing. And so it's not going to generate anything here. I'm actually going to put this as, did I do this right? I did this right. Okay, so 2, and then we'll do this as 3. There we go. Now I'll do them as 2 and 2. I think it'll screw up the gen if I do that. But now it's going to try and generate the green hair in this little tiny quadrant here. And this needs to be the horizontal scale. There we go. I can totally do a different video on this specifically, but as you can see, it like shifted her to the side a little bit because it's trying to generate her hair inside this little square here. And we could actually add padding to all these and like reposition her and stuff like that. So it's pretty powerful. If you're trying to reposition though, this isn't related to this question at all, but you can use something called ControlNet. This is incredibly powerful and has a lot of tools to it. But for example, like, let's say we liked a specific pose that we had generated, for example. Let's just go back to our original one here. Let's say I wanted the same pose, or I wanted the same composition. I can use the various tools in here. So let's go ahead and use Open Pose, which is pretty good. Press this little explosion button to get a little preprocessor, and it'll show us a little image on what it generated. So this is the figure that it tried to generate from that. And then we go ahead and enable ControlNet. And let's go ahead and run it and see what it does. And it will try to copy the pose that it was in the image. And there's various different tools and stuff like that underneath ControlNet. ControlNet is incredibly powerful and is easily my favorite extension. So there we go. We got a very similar pose to what was in the original image that we ended up putting in there. And you can do this with different stuff. There's also Soft Edge is my other favorite one. So what Soft Edge is going to do is it's going to create this little soft image thing. And it's really great for like copying the image and stuff like that. And you have various weights and stuff you can edit and stuff. So it depends on how creative you want it to be. Let's go ahead and put this up to 2.5. Let's go ahead and generate that. But yeah, so there's a ton of tools that you can use, and ControlNet is super in-depth. We'll have to do a video about that at some point. But there we go. So it got the cat ears because it had the cat ears, and it tried to interpret the shapes and stuff like that were in there to try and recreate the character, but it still respects the prompt. So you can get something like a character in a specific pose, you can get a certain scene, and you can re-add it and then try to get very different images. Like this is a very different style than what we had before, which is really cool. Like that's super awesome, because if we look at what it generated beforehand and what it generated now, like that's very, very different. And you can combine the two. Like right now, I'm using both regional prompter and ControlNet. Limitless possibilities, right? All right, so let's move on to the next question. I just wanted to gush about it. I don't think there's anything else in here. Oh, there's a question about poses. That's probably what I was going to use for ControlNet talking. Let's go ahead and disable ControlNet though. All right, so hold on one second. Blowing nose. All right, so how should I organize my prompts? I don't have an answer for this one. So I see this one asked a lot. And generally speaking, the prompt words at the front, let's go ahead and get rid of ControlNet and regional prompter. Yeah, okay. I actually realized I didn't activate regional prompter, so it was just kind of following what I said. Or did I activate it and not notice? I actually didn't activate regional prompter and it was just working perfectly fine. That is hilarious. Okay, well, you have to activate it up at the top. Now it worked properly. Now it put it where it's supposed to go, because that column wasn't supposed to be there, so it actually pushed her to the right. I'm sorry. This is why I script things normally. I'm a silly. All right, anyways. So you can use ControlNet and regional prompter together and stuff like that to make interesting results. Anyways, going back to what I was saying, wow, I feel super dumb after that. It's funny that it worked. That's hilarious. Yeah, so you have to activate each of them when you start that up. Don't make that rookie mistake. I would have noticed if I would have kept messing with it, because I was like, that didn't look right. Like, I was kind of like paused for a moment, and I was like, that didn't look good. But as you can see, okay, so to explain regional prompter, just to go back over it, because I made a mistake, when you activate it, it's supposed to follow these squares, and it did much better here, because basically the add common was like, I add a common prompt. This common prompt is going to affect the entire section, like all of it. And that's optional. You don't have to enable it. And then each one is going to add. So this is an add column row, and this would be this first column here. And then it would be an add row, which would be, or sorry, it would be add column. So this would create the column here. So you're prompting this, and then you add the column, and then it would prompt this, which is going to be this section here. And then you add a row. So this is going to be the row here. And then you're going to prompt this section here, which is the pink shirt here. And then you would add a row, and then red skirt would be the section down here. It gets complicated and technical. I'm going to be honest, I suck at it. I'm good at tuning it, like fine tuning it and using it, but there you go. Like visualizing it in my head and trying to get it to work properly sometimes is kind of complicated, but you can refine it like a lot. Anyways, that's what it's supposed to look like. I'm having so many regrets not scripting this video or this section of the video. All right. So anyways, how should I organize my prompts? The answer to this is complicated because I don't necessarily have a good answer. Typically speaking, I'm going to go ahead and disable that. Typically speaking, the words at the front are going to be prioritized more, which means that you technically want what you want to see in front. So like, for example, if somebody's making naughty images, for example, they'll put not safe for work at the front because boom, instantly they're only getting not safe for work data, right? That's the type of thing that you can do, and you can manipulate it. There is a catch, however. So you'll notice up at the top right, there's actually a token limit. So if we keep typing in here, so we go best quality, and you'll notice that it'll add 3 there. So it registered 3 tokens when we entered in that prompt. And every 75, what it has to do is it has to split it and create a new sector or whatever it's called. I don't remember the technical term. And every word at the front of a sector is going to have more importance than all the other words. But exactly how it works is extremely complicated. And generally speaking, the way that I follow it is I try to keep my prompts under 75 at first, because you can get some weird stuff when you end up going beyond that, depending on the image that you're generating and such. But you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it that gets into creative things. But generally speaking, when I organize prompts, I try to do stylizations and things that are going to affect the entire image as like a stylization sense or the quality sense in the front, and make those as important as possible. Because, for example, if the image set that they was trained off of has like low quality or terrible images or something like that that's tagged as such, we don't want that to be represented in our image that we're generating. So we'll typically put that in negatives for one, and we'll put stuff like best quality or highest quality or highly detailed or pencil sketch or vivid or painterly, that sort of thing. So we'll put that up in the front. So if we actually copy this prompt back, by the way, PNG info will actually draw in all the metadata. So you can see here, it's actually got all that metadata. So we'll change that to text and it will add it in here. I do believe we do have to reactivate it. Oh no, it activated automatically. Cool. Awesome. So if we regenerate this image with all that detail, it should generate the same image unless I change something. Yeah, it did. Okay, so what was I saying? Cool. I just got completely freaking lost. So basically, if we go back to the front and I add like painterly and canvas and drawing and monochrome, it will heavily stylize it in that sense. Or it should anyways. I don't think this model actually supports it. It does not support it. So we can do that in a different model. Let's go ahead and load up AOM3. Long story short though, the way you organize it does matter. So the way that I typically do it, stylization first, then I do subject matter. There we go, that kind of did it. So you can see it did like this painterly effect because painterly is a style. And so you put it at the front so that it's more noticeable and it'll affect the entire image. That one was pretty light. I don't actually have a specific example for that. That's something I would do when I'm scripting, and I didn't script here, so I don't actually have a specific example. I apologize for that. But yeah, so stylization first, and then I do subjects. So we can actually bring back what we did here. Boom, boom. So I do the stylization, the subject that I want, as well as details, and I try to describe the character in a specific order. Normally top to bottom, but sometimes I'll reorganize things depending on what's more important and depending on the prompt. For example, if I do heavy armor and it's not actually generating heavy armor, because with some models, like I have an experimental model I'm working on, and it sometimes doesn't generate the armor. It'll actually generate like a skirt type of outfit. Let me go ahead and bring it up over here. Yeah, so like this was heavy armor, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of heavy armor, but it's also got the skirt. And so if I wanted like a heavy armor on the bottom or something, I would actually put heavy armor in front of skirt and make sure that it's emphasized to try and generate that, or maybe put skirt in the negatives and such to try and make it more important, for example. And there's a couple of examples I could pull up, but I'm not going to go digging through a bunch of image folders right now. I apologize for that. Again, something I would do in a scripted video. Yeah. All right, so the image always uses the same pose. How do people get different poses and camera angles? So there's two ways to do this. One, obviously, we have the control net that we talked about earlier, which is this one here. And basically, like, we could use control net to determine how we actually want it. So for example, if we took this prompt and we just go ahead and enable it with our little cat girl character here, it'll generate an image in that pose, but using the new prompt and stuff, right? Or we use the open pose one, it'll also do the same thing. So as you can see, it tried to follow it as close as possible, generated a very similar image. And that's kind of how you can change poses with control net. But typically speaking, within a prompt itself, we'll actually add keywords and artistic terms. So for example, I might do dynamic pose and then from above, for example, and it'll do a dynamic pose from above. And you can find different poses or different like camera angle keywords. Some models respond better than others. For example, we could do like low angle view, so low or low angle. No, it is low angle view, I think. And then let's say fisheye camera is another one I love to mess with. Fisheye view, I guess we'll do fisheye view. I don't remember if this one responds better to view or camera, but either one seems to work. And then you can see like we get a low angle view with the fisheye effect. So the more artistic terms you throw into here, the different results you'll get that are more like inspired by that sort of form, which is pretty cool. So that's how. We won't cover more into this video, but that's how that goes. What's the best model? There isn't one. Use whatever model has the style and character type that you want. For example, Spirit Mix Soft and Cutesy, it was specifically designed and mixed to make cutesy female characters. So you use it to make cutesy female characters with the soft shading. If you want to do something else with the model, you technically can try, but it's not going to be great at it, which means that you go in and do something else and you get a different model that is specific for something else. So for example, if I wanted to do something that was like, let's say I wanted to do something that was like flat shaded and stuff like that, we'll go ahead and load up like Mistoon Anime and we'll just go ahead and run the same prompt and it'll give that sort of art style and such. And same thing with like realistic and stuff like that. So that's what Mistoon got, which is a really cool result. But yeah, so you can use different models for different things and there isn't a best model. It all depends on like what you're trying to make and how you're trying to make it. And you can find a lot of great models and you can find a lot of terrible models. They're all over the place and you have no way to tell until you actually look at the images and try to test it yourself. So keep that in mind. If you go out on the Civet AI, by the way, just go back over to a web browser here. If you go to Civet AI, you can scroll down and they'll have like examples here and always check the previews that they put here. I'm not going to scroll through it because there's nudity in some of these images. But they will actually like kind of tell you what the general quality is going to be. Because if somebody's uploading a model without good images, it's probably not capable of good images, or they don't care enough to actually test it and make good images, which means that you're probably not going to be able to trust that model very much. So always look at the previews, see if there's good quality images and stuff. So I always try to have good quality images up on the front, try to show it in its best light possible. And so that's generally what most people should do. So use that as a guide, basically, is what people are willing to present you is the quality that you're going to receive. If they have high quality images with not super complex like prompts or anything along those lines, or aren't using a bunch of like control nets and stuff, then it's probably going to be a good model to use. And personally, that's how I ended up using my model. Next is the last question. Test a model. What does that mean? So I'll mention a couple of times that I'm testing a model, and this is where we're going to get into some more extension type stuff, which is fun. Then we got dynamic prompts. This is cool. So there are various different ways to test a model, and generally what I mean by that is that you try to generate a bunch of different images of different styles and things, and you just try to see what the model can do and its limits. And doing that manually takes a lot of time. So there's two ways that I do it, and I'm not going to go too much in depth here because we're way over time. But dynamic prompts is one of them. You can read up on it on their GitHub page. But basically, when you enable this, it actually allows you to input prompts that it'll do randomly. So for example, let's go back to Spirit Mix. Let's go ahead and type in here. Let's go ahead and change the hair just because it'll be an easy example. So where did I do blonde hair? So we did blonde hair here. I believe the prompting is curly braces with line in between. So let's do that and then brunette. There we go. Wait, is brunette spelled right? I don't actually know how to spell brunette. I'm a very smart man, as you can tell. Anyways, so what it'll do is it'll randomize which one it selects between your generations. So if we go ahead and do, like, let's just say 5 generations, and we start to run this, it should alternate between them. So it'll be like, this one's brunette. I forgot that we had the fisheye stuff. That one's blonde. That one's also blonde. But you can do this with like dynamic prompts and stuff like that. And you can actually make it so that it will like try to combine them, or you can do ones to where it like mixes them up randomly. You can also use wildcards, which is basically another version of dynamic prompts that'll actually enter in from a file, and you can just have like a huge library of words and stuff, and it'll just randomly mix it in. But as we can see here, sometimes it generated the brunette hair, and sometimes it did the blonde hair, which is pretty cool. Some of these actually look pretty cool. Fisheye effect is one of my favorite effects for AI image generation, because it produces really interesting results where distortions aren't as noticeable sometimes. But yeah, that one's cute. But yeah, so there we go. That's how that works. Another way that I use it, and this is typically how I actually test things, is I use scripts. So Automatic has in-depth script support, and there's a ton of stuff you can do with it. One of my favorite ones is either prompts from file or text box, or a prompt matrix. So in a prompt matrix, you can define different axes to then test different aspects of something, such as like, let's say the weight of a LoRa or something along those lines, which we didn't cover in this video. Or we could do prompts and file text box, which basically I can input a list of prompts that I want to use, such as like we could copy this prompt, and then we could also copy another prompt that we had ended up generating and generate them for like different models or different versions of things, or maybe with different weights, so on and so forth, or different keywords and stuff. So it's really flexible, and there's a lot of ways to really test a model. Oops. That's so you can upload from my model or from a file and stuff. So you can actually just click a bunch of images, I think, and drag them in there, actually. If we go ahead and try that. So we'll go ahead and click that one. And let's go ahead and click that one. And we'll just drag those in there. Does this work? There we go. Whoa. Okay. Not really. Kind of gave us a bunch of garbled mess. Is that going to work? I have no idea if that's going to work. Oh, I didn't want to do 5. Hold on. It doesn't look like that worked. It gave a bunch of garbled mess. I've never seen it do that before. Something weird in my parameters, probably. All right, well, now it's just generating completely random images, and it's telling us it's going to take 20 hours? What? Okay, well, that didn't work, so we're going to cancel that. I'm learning while making a video. Come on, go away. Go away. Delete everything. Okay, well. Well, that's a great way to end this. I think I just killed my prompts. There we go. Okay. Anyways, that's going to be me. I didn't script an outro. I'm a fantastic man. All right, so anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check out my Ko-Fi. If you like my content, you can end up sending over a donation, or you can check out our Discord over at the gaming, or our gaming Discord, and I guess our Discord and stuff like that. And I don't know what to call it anymore. Our Discord, called the Broken Chat Box, link in the description below. If you end up donating over on Ko-Fi, you get access to the exclusive channels and stuff. So you can do that. You just have to donate once, and then you have constant access to it like forever. So you don't have to worry about that. Just link your Discord with Ko-Fi. Yeah, that's it. If you like to see more content like this one, make sure to let me know. Ask questions you want answered. Certain types of AI stuff you want covered, send it to me. We'll make a video. That's how we'll do this. This is a long freaking video. I apologize for that. I hope it was useful and all-encompassing. There's so much more to cover. I originally recorded this video and it was 3.5 hours long. I have no idea how long this is, but I'm guaranteeing it's like 2 hours. I'm gonna go finish eating my chocolate orange. Later.